Happy Monday, everyone. This is Frank Ftdk's Drop of Knowledge coming at you once again. A little bit of a message, a little bit of knowledge, hoping everyone's having a fantastic day today. Shout out to all my new subscribers, everyone that's watching and rocking with my videos, with my channel, leaving likes, leaving comments. Those of you that engage with me on my lives, I've been doing a lot of lives lately as well. Shout out to ExposedTube, to the ladies of ExposedTube, and all of you that are showing support. I really do appreciate it. It just motivates me to keep moving forward, continue dropping content, and sometimes I'm going to jump in front of the camera and just speak my mind like I will today. I wanted to talk a little bit about being blessed and having talents. I think that all of us are endowed with talents. I think all of us are blessed in different ways, in different manners. And I think that a lot of times it is aligned with where we're at in our lives. And I also believe that the type of blessings that we receive, the type of talents that we receive, come when we are ready to receive them. I think that we have to do our part in moving a certain way and having a certain amount of faith to make these blessings, to have these talents appear. Now, having said that, I think that honestly, I've been given many talents, many blessings in my walk with God. I believe that, in my faith, I believe that. I also see it. I put a lot of it into practice. I put a lot of it into good use. When I make my videos, when I go on a live, when I do what I do, when I work, when I speak to my kids or loved ones, I always use the things that I know, the things that have been given to me in order to impact others. And I think that the primary purpose of the talents that we have, the primary purpose of our blessings is not only to help others and not only to engage with others and to open doors of understanding, but I also believe that it's to share with others those things that God has given us, right? I do believe that, we have a purpose, you know, the ultimate purpose, what it is, I just think it's to be the best we can be at everything we can do and to bring as many people to the realization that there is a God, that there is of higher power, that there are things that can be done to improve ourselves, to become better people. I think that that's what we need to be able to do, and if we're not doing that, then we're on the other side of the spectrum where we're constantly searching for our place in this world, in this life, in this plane. But that's a whole different conversation that we can have some other time. I did want to share with you guys an experience that I had, and I believe that in that experience, a lot of the gifts that God gave me, I was able to put into place. But these were things that I didn't always have. For example, patience. For example, being calm under pressure. For example, not getting crazy or not trying to be, the baddest dude in the world at that moment. Because I think that anybody that's gone through the experience of being out there on the streets doing things has probably been at a certain level or a certain place where they had to prove that they were the baddest, where they had to act that way, where they had to prove themselves. I think all of us have been there. If you've been on the streets, if you've been, involved in street activity, right? I come from that, and a lot of that I'm is still there. It's just dormant. It's just, sometimes I use it in order to remember things so that I can judge certain things or certain actions in other people. But one day in particular, and this was back in I would say it was back in 2019, 2018. This was like about a year, probably about a year before the pandemic. So I used to work at an academy, at this English academy. I was making pretty good money, and I could go home like to eat lunch and come back. And I remember that day I was going to get off early. I didn't have a car at the moment, so I took the bus. Right, I was taking the bus, and for some reason the bus took a turn where it usually didn't go. I think there was some traffic thing going on. They were fixing a street, if I remember correctly, but it went a certain, a different route than it normally did. Well, in one of those corners, or like when it was turning one of those corners in this other route that it usually doesn't take, three guys jumped on me. the bus, and they basically hijacked the bus. Right. And I remember watching it all play out and thinking, man, I hope they don't come bother me. I hope they leave us alone. I don't want, no one telling me anything. Because I was already feeling that I was getting a little heated. Like I was getting upset at the situation. Obviously, you don't expect to get on the public transportation and it being hijacked, right? But it was hijacked, and whether I don't know if they were gang members, but they were definitely criminals, and I think that they were running from the cops, and that's why they jumped on the bus. It was three of them. They hijacked the bus, and they basically told the driver like to go down some streets that usually that route does not go down. And I remember at that moment I was thinking, man, what should I do? So I pulled out my phone and I started filming it live on Facebook. And some of the comments, like some of the people that know me, were like, especially that work with me, like Frank, what's going on? And I'm like, oh, this, and I let them know. And they're like, do you want me to call the cops? What should we do? Like, no, no, I just want you guys to be aware. This shit's going on right now. Like, this is going down right now, like live. They hijacked the bus. I'm in this bus is being hijacked. And what ended up happening was that one of the main dude that was hijacking the bus, he started walking back towards everyone and he started looking for a shirt and he saw me. He's like, hey, give me your shirt. He's like, I'll give you mine. Just give me your shirt because I don't want to get caught. But he wasn't like an asshole about it. He wasn't being like, aggressive or threatening towards me. It was like, hey, can you think you can do me the favor? I'm like, all right. So I took off my shirt. I took off my shirt and he gave me his. I threw it away. I was wearing a tank top underneath. So he puts on my shirt. Sure enough, maybe like 5 minutes later, they tell the driver to stop and they all get off. Right. And I remember thinking at that moment, giving thanks to God. And I remember feeling blessed because, I didn't overreact. I didn't, take it as disrespect because there's been times in my life where it doesn't matter what the situation is, where if that would have happened to me and I would have been in that mode, I wouldn't have cared. And I probably might have even gotten into a fight with the dude, and that unfortunately caused a lot of problems. I got into a lot of problems because of my temper, because I reacted a certain way. But I remember thinking afterwards, right? And, I was able to check in with everyone that was on live. Like, are you okay? Is everything okay? I'm like, yeah. And I deleted it because I figured, man, if these guys are gang members and, especially how it was back then, it would have been a problem. So I deleted it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay, but I'm going to delete this just so you guys know I'm all right. Boom. I deleted it. I continued because that bus was taking me home. I stayed on the bus. I made it all the way home. I told my wife, I told, and everything, right? But, sometimes people don't understand just, or they don't remember. I'm going to say that. Sometimes we don't remember all of the things that we've gone through, like all of the dangers that we could have been in, like sometimes without even knowing. Like there's been moments in which we've crossed places where maybe a few minutes later someone died, or maybe a few minutes later there was an accident, and if you would have been there, you would have gotten caught up too. And it goes for bad things too. Like I remember one time I was pulled over. Like we were pulled over with my friends, like my crimies that became, the friends that became my crimies later on in life. But I remember once we were riding around in the car, and I was driving, and I had a weapon underneath the seat. My homeboy was next to me. He had a weapon underneath the seat. And then my homeboy in the back, he was rolling up a joint, and like with the shoebox, everything out, and they pull us over. Like the cops came out of nowhere, pull us over, and they caught us with everything. But it just so happened that at that moment they got a call of shots fired, and it was pretty close because we heard like, and they got the call, and they're like, "Man, this is your lucky day. Get the fuck out of here." They knocked all the weed out though. They knocked it into the gutter, but they let us go. They didn't even take the weapon. So I think that even at that moment, I was blessed to a certain extent because I might not have been ready to learn the lessons that I learned when I finally did get locked up. Like, that's how I see it. No, I don't ever think that things happen by chance. That's a belief that I have. I don't believe that things happen by chance. I believe that we are also implicit, like we're also complicit in what happens in our lives by our actions, by our thoughts, by the way we move, by what we know, by what we don't know, by what we say, but what we don't say. Like, we're complicit in what we create of ourselves. But I think that if we always remember that we are blessed, like if we have that belief that we are blessed, that we do have a higher power. In my case, we do have Jesus and God on our side. Regardless of what happens, we'll be okay. And that's not something I always had. I didn't always feel that way. I didn't always believe that. There was a moment in my life that I think I was in depression. I was kind of wallowing in my melancholy, in my misery, but I kind of liked that state because it excused me from all of the shit that I was doing. It was like, yeah, but I mean, nobody cares about me. Nobody cares. My family don't even want to talk to me. So a lot of that I used also as a shield to block any criticism for all the bullshit that I was doing. And I think that if we want to be blessed, I think one of the things that we need to be able to do is just be honest about who we are. We need to be honest. We need to stop hiding behind facades. We need to stop trying to pretend that we're people we're not. We have to be who we are all the time. And sometimes it's going to ruffle feathers. Sometimes it's going to create issues. Sometimes it might break relationships. But if it happens, it was probably meant to happen. It was probably supposed to happen in order for you to grow and move in the direction where you will be more blessed, because you have to keep moving. You have to keep growing. You have to keep learning. You have to keep applying, and you have to keep on keeping up. Now, I think being blessed is not something that just occurs once. It's a state of mind. Well, being blessed is a state of mind. You have to live as though you're blessed to continuously be blessed. But you also have to be able to share and dispense what you're being blessed with to others. No, that's why I try to take time every time I go live, every time I put something out, to give you guys a little bit of knowledge, or to give you a little bit of something that I've learned. And in this case, I just want to leave you with this. You cannot be blessed if you're stagnant in your thoughts, if you're stagnant physically, if you're stagnant emotionally. When you know that you're supposed to move forward, but you decide to procrastinate, you're not going to be blessed. And it's only going to get more difficult for you to move in the right direction. The more you think about it, the more you analyze it. Sometimes you just got to take that leap of faith. Sometimes you just have to move. Sometimes you just have to believe that if I do this, it's going to happen. But be strong enough to where, hey, man, if I don't make it the first time, I'm going to continue striving for it. I'm going to continue moving towards that goal. That's how I live my life. And I believe that it's because I'm constantly moving forward. I don't let things get to me. I pick myself up, dust myself off, thank God for another opportunity, and then I move forward with faith that I end up being blessed, and I end up reaching my goals and reaching those blessings that I need. I honestly think that being blessed is a state of mind, and it's a state of being that you can achieve if you're honest about who you are, if you're honest to others, and if you move with integrity. You know? So I hope that you guys picked up a little bit in today's video. I hope it helped you guys view things a different way. I'm not trying to preach. All I'm trying to say is, we can do a lot more than what we're doing now to be at a better place. And I'm always going to feel that way. Like, I'd be at a good place right now and I'll feel comfortable and I'll be content, but I'm already thinking of the next plane, of how much more I can achieve, of how much higher I can go, of how much more I can learn. And that's why I stay forever a student. This yesterday's live, I learned many things just by the interactions that I was having with people. I'm also learning real time. Don't ever forget to be a student. When you think you know it all, is when you stop learning and you stop growing. Now, having said that, I hope all of you guys are having an excellent day. I wish you the best of weeks, the best of times. May everything you do be blessed and multiplied. And until next time, peace.